Hey, y'all. Welcome back to the Don't Mom Alone podcast. I'm your host, Heather McFadden, and this is the place where I get to walk alongside you and connect you with people and resources so you know that you don't mom alone. And in this episode, number 503, the last one of 2024, we're going out with a bang, and I've invited to the show Dr. Morgan Cutlip.
And the mental load of the home and family life, for women especially, is so often the intersection of the mental, the physical, and the emotional, which I call the triple threat. And that is why it is so stinking draining.
Dr. Cutlip is a psychologist and a highly sought-after relationship expert. She has a book out called Love Your Kids Without Losing Yourself, and a new one that we're going to have her come back on to talk about called A Better Share, How Couples Tackle the Mental Load. And today, she and I are going to talk about what is mental load, this invisible running to-do list that we keep in our minds. How do we as moms identify our needs and communicate them and get clear without confusing our spouses? She tells us about 2 different types of guilt and how to respond to them. She talks about 3 domains of mental load. And there are some tips for navigating the holiday season without adding more to your to-do list and to remove some of the pressure to make it magical. So let's get right to it. Here we go. Morgan, thank you for coming on the Don't Mom Alone podcast.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
I probably should have asked you, should I call you Dr. Cutlip or
It sounds
Morgan
right.
okay?
Okay. We've established I have some credentials, so
Yes.
Morgan is great.
Morgan's great. Dr. Morgan, I don't know. Like, what do you think? I'm just thrilled. The more I dig into what you have to offer everyone, the more excited I am, because I wish I had the content you're providing back when I was a new mom to 4 young kids and overwhelmed and feeling guilt and resentment towards all the people, not just my spouse,
Everybody.
every person who was not under all the weight of all the things that I was doing, and just not really aware of how to hold that balance of, like, sure, I'm supposed to do self-care, but what does that actually mean? And sure, I'm supposed to ask for help, but what does that actually mean? And so you have, well, one book that's out right now, another book's coming, but the book out right now is called Love Your Kids Without Losing Yourself. And I'm going to read the whole subtitle.
Do it.
5 steps to banish guilt, beat burnout when you already have too much to do.
That's it.
We
It's
don't
a
need more
mouthful.
lists. We don't need more lists.
No.
Yeah.
I do not. Yeah. I mean, that was like one of the lines I kept coming back to when I would talk about this book, which is moms don't need more lists of things to do in the time that we don't have. And that is what a lot of self-care looks like for moms. It's like, get your nails done, book a spa day, go out with your girls. And it's like, we don't have time for that.
Yeah.
Who's watching the kids?
Mhm.
What's going on? So,
Well, and I think sometimes when people, they hear Don't Mom Alone, they think in their mind they know what I'm talking about. That I mean, have a bunch of friends.
yeah.
Like, don't do this isolated. And to me, a lot of it is what you're talking about. Like, don't carry the weight of motherhood and the outcome of your kids all on your shoulders.
Yeah. It's true. We cannot do it alone. And if you think about just motherhood and parenthood today, we are carrying so much more than I think even previous generations. In this modern day society, we are worrying about so many more things. We have technology to navigate. We parent in a way that there's actually a sociologist who did some research on this type of parenting, which is called intensive parenting, which is where we put our kids at the center of everything, where we believe that if it's, not feeling hard, that we're not doing a good job, that we have to provide these like stimulating activities all the time to foster their growth. I mean, you just look on social media and it's like these crazy playrooms people are putting together and sensory bins, and we're always working on their development. And it's just these ways that we're even approaching parenting today. We should never have
Mm.
been doing it alone, but the way that we are approaching parenting today makes our plates so much heavier. Our loads are
Mm.
so much fuller, and we have just so much more, even in our mental sort of game here. We are worrying about so many more things than previous generations. So it is
Yeah.
a lot to navigate.
Yeah, that phrase mental load. The rate once we became we're like, "Yeah, I have that." Define it for the person who maybe hasn't seen 1,000 Instagram reels on it, but what is mental load, and that doesn't it feel like that's a newer
It
conversation
is.
people are having? Okay.
It is a newer one, and it's funny because, when you're on like I'm on social media and, whatever, for better, for worse, I'm on there. And so it's like a bubble. It's like a world all its own where you feel like everyone knows what it is, and then you get in the real world. And because my second book is on the mental load, I've talked about it. I'm like, "Do you know what this is?" And they're like, "No." But you
Mm.
describe it and everybody immediately recognizes it because it's something that we just feel. So
Yeah.
the mental load is something that everybody has. My kids have a mental load. Everybody has a mental load. It's not just a woman thing. But we've been talking about it more and more in our culture around the mental load that women carry in the home and family life. And so I'll define the broad, and then I'll give you a in the weeds definition, which can be helpful. So the broad definition is it's the invisible running to-do list that we carry around in our minds that takes up cognitive real estate. That's how I
Mm.
say it, at least, which means it crowds out other things like being able to keep your cool, having patience, being in the mood for sex, stuff like that. And it drains our energy, and it's invisible, which is an important piece because that makes it hard to articulate to people. So, if I were to get in the weeds on the definition, which can be really helpful, because I think that in our home and family life, a lot of times women will feel really overwhelmed by it. But then
Mm.
when we start to explain it, it seems kind of silly. We're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I got to buy Christmas gifts, and I got to wrap them, and I got to get the teacher's gifts." And it's like, big deal. Make a list. Like, what's your problem? It sounds like nothing. And I want to explain why it is so overwhelming. So there's 3 domains that are involved in the mental load. There is the cognitive or the mental. So that's like the making of the lists, the thinking through what I need to buy at the store, what the teachers need, stuff like that. There's the physical, which is actually the carrying out of the tasks. And this is usually where men, I'm stereotyping a bit, but this is where men kind of thrive, where it's like, give me the list and I'll do the stuff. This is like doing the laundry, packing the lunches, making dinner. And then there's the emotional.
Mm.
And this is the kicker, because the emotional domain of the mental load requires that we sort of predict or anticipate sort of these cause and effect experiences of members in our family.
Mm.
So, an example I give is my son plays baseball, and he just like will not eat breakfast. And part of my thinking is, I have to think through the night before all of the offerings I'm going to give for breakfast, because if he has a baseball game and he goes to that game hungry and tired, he's not going to pitch well. And if he doesn't pitch well, then he's going to sit the bench the next game. And then it's going to affect his self-esteem. And then he's going to not like how he plays. And then he's going to think he's not good. And then he's going to play the worst the next. Like this whole unpacking of an entire experience of someone, when really it could be summed up by like, I'm just worried about what he eats for breakfast. But there's all this like underneath stuff. That's
Yeah.
the emotional side of the mental load. It's hard to hand off to anybody else. You can't really hire it out, and it goes with you everywhere, whether you work from home, you're a stay-at-home parent, or you work full-time. It can whiplash you back into the mental load. And the mental load, I'm summing it up here. I took you on a journey there,
I
but the
love it.
mental load of the home and family life for women especially is so often the intersection of the mental, the physical, and the emotional, which I call the triple threat.
Mm.
And that is why it is so stinking draining.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about y'all listening, but I'm confident an example pops in your head. As you were talking about the breakfast impacting baseball, I know for me, an immediate, and I'll have to say that worry string that I connect
Mhm.
isn't just coming from me. It's sometimes coming from a teacher
Mm.
or a coach it feels like there are multiple people outside of our family that are giving me feedback on what I need to do different to help the performance of my child.
Oh, my word. Yes.
That it is up to me. So it's not just this
Yes.
imagined like string of events. It is actually being communicated to me via the school nurse or via the coach's little pep talk to parents. I mean, it is on my actual shoulders because they're the ones
Yes.
pointing at me as if I'm handheld. I'm feeding my child, like for you, for the example of breakfast, like as if the child doesn't have ownership of feeding themselves.
Yes, and that stuff is usually fed to the woman,
Yeah.
most often. So
Yeah.
it's like if something's going on with your kid, they don't usually think about, well, what's the dad doing at home? Why is this kid? Didn't his dad
Are
teach
they
him
just
right?
not offering them food? Like, do they not have food? It's like,
What's that going on here?
have
It's
you never
usually
had a child at 7 a.m. who's not interested in, like in
right.
your example?
Right.
But
And it usually falls on the women's shoulders to kind of fix this stuff or handle this stuff, which we're acutely aware of. And so then the intensity of our worry and the pressure to kind of get it right intensifies. And you're talking about these like real life people who are telling you the things that need to get done. But then we also have this, the
mm,
world of information,
mm,
whether it's, if we think about all of the amount of time of our day, we're either on our phones, on our email, on our computer, on the TV. It's like the majority of our day, we are receiving some sort of information or interacting with technology. And, I'm part of this world of experts on social media, but there are a slew of us, credentialed, not credentialed, like all sorts of ranges that are feeding out information about how to do a lot of things well, but even specifically parenthood and motherhood well.
yeah.
And, I saw something the other day. I'm going to get this wrong, so like don't take what I'm saying literally, but it was something like if your kid does jujitsu, they're more likely to like be, I don't know, it was like be president. Like it wasn't that, but it was something ridiculous. And I was like, oh, I felt an immediate sense of falling short.
Mhm.
Oh gosh, my kids used to do jujitsu. We don't do jujitsu anymore. I better sign them up for martial arts. Like I'm depriving them of this opportunity of developing this wonderful. And it's like we see stuff like that constantly, and this adds to our feeling of pressure. It adds to the mental load in a massive way, and this feeling of like we're never doing enough.
Mm.
And that in and of itself is enough to just kind of wear you out and really like suck a lot of the joy out of being a mother and a parent and just enjoying our kids when we feel like we just are never quite getting it right or doing enough.
2024 is coming to an end, and maybe you're the type of person who gets excited about a new year and maybe some new goals for your new year. I don't know, but maybe you want to learn a new language. And there's a classic go-to source on learning a new language, and it's Rosetta Stone. It is the most trusted language learning program, which is available on a desktop or as an app, and it truly immerses you in the language you want to learn. Whether it's Spanish, French, Italian, German, Korean, Chinese, Japanese, Dutch, Arabic, Polish, they have so many languages, 25 available with 30 years of experience, millions of users, and it's fast. There's no English translation, so you really learn to speak, listen, and think in that language. They also have this really cool speech recognition feature. It's built with true accent, so it gives you this feedback even on your pronunciation. As a speech language pathologist, I will tell you that matters. It's almost like having a personal trainer for your accent. It's convenient, super flexible. You can use it anytime, anywhere, learn on the go. So it would be a great addition to your carpool line. If you're a mom who's picking up kids, use that time to grow in your language learning. It's an amazing value too. There's a lifetime membership for all 25 languages, access to all of them through Rosetta Stone. So start the new year off with a resolution you can reach. Today, Don't Mom Alone listeners can take advantage of this New Year's special of Rosetta Stone's lifetime membership. Visit rosettastone.com/DMA That's unlimited access to 25 language courses for the rest of your life. Redeem your New Year's offer at rosettastone.com/DMA today. And this comes out during the holiday season, which probably people are going to hear and they've already felt all of that. I heard someone say it was the blur between Thanksgiving and Christmas. And I said out loud, is it the blur universally, or is there a certain demographic that feels that more? And the increased load, I think I saw a post that you'd done to make it magical.
Yeah.
To create connections, like things that I know I feel the pressure to do. And if you have a partner, a parenting partner, a spouse, or someone else, I think it's, how do we get help
from our partners?
From a partner. And I think, and hopefully I'm connecting this right, but I think in your book, you talk about helping moms identify those needs and then expressing them, because part of it is a communication of the partner may not even know that that is an expectation you have or in your mental load. And if you don't communicate it, then you will continue to carry it alone.
Yes, you're hitting on so many things. So I really, when my, we're trying to think where to start. So I'm like, there's so many things
that's why I was
say.
like,
I'm
I feel like it's all intertwined when we're talking about.
It's all intertwined.
Yeah.
When we were talking before we got on here about the 2-book deal situation, and when I got my 2-book deal, we really sat with for a while, which one comes first, the book for moms or the book for couples? And it worked out that the book for moms came first. And I'm really glad it did, because sometimes stepping into asking for help around the mental load, or any part of our life, but specifically around the mental load, we've got to tackle some of the hangups we have around our feeling of, I call it like a healthy sense of entitlement. Like entitlement's not, that's too far. It's a healthy sense of entitlement or a right to have needs. Sometimes we got to really battle with that a little bit, because I think that as women, we're really told that, we have to self-sacrifice for the preservation of our relationships. And when we do that to the point of feeling resentful toward the people we love the most, this has gone way too far. And so we have to kind of walk some of that stuff back and get comfortable, not only being able to speak up for needs and comfortable with the idea of, okay, I got needs and I'm going to have to tell people, but then, okay, well, what are they? Because when you disassociate from them for so long, you don't know what they are anymore. How do you define them? And then how do you actually speak them out? And then when you get pushback, how do you navigate that, which is in my next book, because that comes up a lot.
Yeah. I think that this whole thing, like, how do I think, one, we've opened women's minds to the fact that they have a mental load if they never understood that concept. I think that's a huge thing to grasp. Then it's being aware of what are those things I'm carrying.
Yeah.
And then it's what's the underlying need? Because it is sometimes that load is an ideal that perhaps we need to do some inner work to let go of an ideal. And sometimes it's an actual, I cannot physically do all these things on my own, particularly if you're both working outside the home, you haven't managed like who does what home responsibilities.
Yeah.
Does dinner always fall on one spouse? Does, you know what I mean? Does gift shopping for the holidays always fall on one? Like, I don't know. Sometimes there's actual needs underneath that mental load that I would think we need to help.
Yes. So we can talk. I feel like when we talk about the mental load, a lot of ways it's talked about is just simply around the division of responsibility. So there's a lot of stuff to do. Who does what? How do we make sure it feels fair? And that is such an important piece. And then the other part of it is, how do we get, the appreciation we need around it? How do we talk about the mental load without it turning? I did these interviews with men and women around the mental load for my second book. And a lot of these women would talk about, and they called it the same thing, which I thought was really interesting, the death spiral that occurs when they talk about the mental load, which is that it ends up turning into an argument. And so there's lots of ways of approaching it. But if we're just going to say, okay, for the holidays, the mental load is off the charts, what are some things that you can do to really try to navigate this a little bit differently? I would say one thing is have like a meeting with your partner. This is one of the takeaways of book 2 and I give a structure for it. But sit down, spend like 5-10 minutes and like, let's just like, what do we got going on? We are
Mm.
at a busier time of year. It makes sense that we're overwhelmed because there's more on our plates. That's the thing about the mental load is day to day, season to season, circumstances of life. All of these things will change the demands and the intensity of the mental load. So you got to regularly adjust who does what and how you navigate it together. So sit down, talk about it, set a timer if you want. So you like don't get in the weeds on things. And okay, these are the things we got going on. Who's taking care of what? What's my responsibility? What's yours? Do you even know that the teachers need gifts? Let's talk about that. Can you go pick up some stuff for them? Just talk about those things and divvy it up a little bit. I think another thing too that my husband and I have done for years and years now is we like made a tradition around wrapping presents, which is that we watch a certain movie. We do it at like a couple nights leading up to Christmas. And it's almost like this like time of connection where we sit and we talk and we watch a movie and we do the wrapping together. He's a much better rapper. So I tend to like talk more and he raps more. But it's like, it didn't feel like I'm delegating a task. It felt like a really nice way to connect. I think the last thing that's worth mentioning is when I surveyed around 536 women on the mental load and just some of their experiences. And I asked them, what do you want most from your partner when it comes to the mental load? And the first one's kind of obvious. They wanted more initiative taking. I talk about that in the book. But the second thing they want is more appreciation and acknowledgement. And it was a close second. And so I think that it's so important to remember that something you can also ask for. And then if you're someone who can give it listening to this, something you can give that takes almost no time or energy is just some appreciation and acknowledgement that you see everything they're doing to make the season magical, to take care of all of the people in the family, that how thoughtful they are about what they pour into the gifts, and really just pouring into them, the appreciation for all that they do to sort of make this season special and to bless your family. That goes a long way.
And asking for that, how's that going to sound?
Yeah.
That feels like like I want you to just do it. I don't want to have to. It feels like
I know.
when you pick out your own gift and you
I know.
wrap it yourself.
I think we got to get over that though.
Okay.
And I think, I hear that from women a lot. Like if I tell him what I need and he does it, it's because I told him. And I'm like, well, do you want the need met or not? It's like so funny because it's a common piece of relationship advice where we say, oh, you're not a mind reader. Your partner's not a mind reader. Tell them what you need. But then when it comes to certain areas of our relationship, we're like, that doesn't apply. They should know and they should read my mind.
Just know my needs and meet them. Yes. 100%.
So we have to sort of get over it. And I promise you that it feels better to get your need met that way than to not get it met at all. And part of that is sort of like the training wheels, I think, for in the future doing it without being asked and being prompted. So this one in particular was actually a reoccurring argument between my husband and I for like the first 10 years of our marriage. Because I couldn't figure out how to articulate what I wanted. I'd be like, I need more appreciation. And he's like, thank you. And I was like, that's not it. That stinks.
Yeah.
Or he'd be like, I need like you to like really appreciate me and be like, you're a good mom. And I'm like, you could say that to anybody. Like it was never. So that was our dynamic. And then he would be like, I'm doing it. And it's never enough or it's not right. So then
it's not fitting. Yeah. It's not filling the need. Yeah.
It's not filling the need. And he would feel like he was trying and I wasn't acknowledging. So then the death spiral would ensue. And so that comes down to, for us, and I think for a lot of people, is we have to get very crystal clear about what we need so we can ask for specifically what we need, or else we're kind of just confusing to our partners. So a common example is women will say, I just need you to be more romantic. Okay, well, what is that? Like, what is that? Is that flowers? Is that planning a date? Is that, in the bedroom? Is that like, what is romantic? What does that mean? So getting incredibly clear about the deliverables of that need. Another way to think about it is if it was caught on camera, your partner meeting your need in the exact way you want it met, what was caught on film, and can you articulate that to your partner? Turns out what I needed from my husband was not necessarily just like a thank you, because that did not do it for me at all. I needed to feel visible and I needed to feel valued. So how was I doing stuff that really, like, he noticed? It was important to me that he saw it, but also that he saw how it really, like, moves our family forward, how it makes our life better, how I take things off his plate. And so I have a formula for the ultimate compliment. The formula is say something that you notice plus how it enhances your life or makes it better. I see all the stocking stuffers you picked out for the kids. It's so wonderful how much heart you pour into that. And thanks for doing it. I don't even now have to worry about it. I appreciate you so much. That's a nice compliment. That gives you like a little bit of mileage to be able to kind of go on and continue and to feel really valued in your relationship. And so that was the thing that we would argue about the most. I had to get very clear on it. And then part of it was also learning ways to ask for it that didn't kind of trip him up or to kind of push through it. And that's a longer discussion, but I'll give one tip.
Okay.
Which is, a lot of times when we ask a partner for a need, they get defensive because they're like, I'm already doing that. And the reality is they might be doing it. And so it can be helpful to differentiate between like, I'm asking for a need you never do, and saying to them, I'm just asking for a little bit more of the thing that you're already doing. I appreciate how much you do this for me. I just need a little bit more of that. It's not that you're failing or you're doing anything wrong, but a little bit more would go a long way with me.
There are a few things that I like to buy for our home: cleaning supplies, snacks for my boys, and even just food and things that help my body function well. And one tool that helps me get those products, know that they're high quality, and save money is Thrive Market. I'm telling y'all, I can find things that I've ordered in the past, whether it's my favorite indigo, wild, zum clean, frankincense and myrrh laundry detergent, whether it is the Chomps grass-fed beef sticks for my boys, or, like I said, the MCT oil. Not only can I find them on Thrive really easily because it saves my past orders, but they're on at a discount. So the oil, I get 30% off, and it's really helpful because I'm using that oil every single day in my coffee, and my boys can go through those jerky sticks like no joke, and I know I can get them at a discount, which is so, so helpful. What's great is everything in Thrive Market, certified organic is their first choice, and that they study every label to search for the best wholesome ingredients, and they've been vetted for safety. You don't have to spend your time, your hours reading all the snack labels. They even restrict 1,000+ ingredients that are traditionally found at your grocery store, so you can shop with peace of mind. I also love Thrive Market's mission to make healthy and sustainable living easy and affordable for everyone. So they are seeking out brands and products that follow ethical practices, including fair pay and treatment for workers, strict quality standards, and even safe working conditions. So your membership is helping the people who make the products, and you even sponsor a family in need when you get a Thrive Market membership. So if you want to shop at a grocery store that actually cares for your health, go to thrivemarket.com/DMA for 30% off your first order, plus a free $60 gift. That's THRIVE market.com/DMA, thrivemarket.com/DMA. This message is sponsored by Greenlight. We all know the old saying, give a man a fish and he eats for a day, teach a man a fish and he eats for life. Well, this isn't just advice for folks who fish. It's also good to keep in mind as parents, we can't walk with our kids all the time their entire life. We have to teach them skills that set them up for success. And with this whole season of giving, now is the perfect time to give your kids money skills that are going to last well beyond the holidays. I know that we gave our kids their Greenlight cards one Christmas before we were heading out on a trip, and it was so helpful because Greenlight, with our family account, we got 4 different cards. Each boy has a card. So it's this debit card, and then there's a money app. So we can manage from our account who has what in their different spending accounts. And then whenever they're out and about, they can use their card and purchase something, but we get to see what they spend money on. So they're getting confidence in spending money, saving money, and gaining lifelong financial literacy skills. The Greenlight app also has games that teach money skills, and you can set up a recurring chore or allowance or reward kids for specific jobs, one-time things. It's so customizable, made for families. I have loved it. We use it with our boys who drive and they need to get gas, so that they say, hey, I'm headed to go get gas, and we can put money in their account, or however your family wants to decide to use it. I feel like Greenlight is really supportive of families. So millions of parents and kids are learning about money on Greenlight. It's so easy and convenient, and it helps you navigate life together. So sign up for Greenlight today at greenlight.com/DMA. That's greenlight.com/DMA to try Greenlight today. Greenlight.com/DMA. Okay, so you were talking about sickness on one of your posts. And it struck a nerve because I just was sick and now my husband's sick. And I did notice like how I'm thankful my husband does not play sick. He, in fact, I have to tell him, you are sick, you need to go to bed. He's an action-oriented type person. But I could imagine like it really reveals the split in what we're talking about here when you're sick and you have to find other people to do all the things you're doing. But when your spouse is sick, they can just go to a room and the life is no different. And also it can maybe highlight some needs outside of appreciation. But once again, like I've asked women before, what are you feeling? And then what do you need? And they literally go, I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips on helping women? Because maybe that has been, like you said, an unpracticed skill.
Yeah.
Especially like girls are kind of told like, don't have needs.
Yeah.
So how do we tap into that if that's a very unfamiliar territory so that resentment doesn't build? And
yeah, so I have some shortcuts that I like to use. In my first book, I give an acronym to help. I try to I get deep on some concepts and then I come out with practical tips, but I try to like spoon feed things because I don't want you to have to put too much work into stuff. It's like, we got enough to do.
Yeah.
Don't make me think too hard. So I have an acronym for thinking about needs that you might have and give examples. But one of the shortcuts to figure out what you need is to think about what you complain about the most. I think complaints are windows to unmet needs, and sometimes we're not really in touch with like how much we're complaining. But if you notice like you're muttering things under your breath as you're moving through your day, or there's like that reoccurring like pang of irritation that comes up and you're like, you get all kind of like, angsty about it, take a minute and be like, what is that about? What is that saying? And I bet there's a theme. And that theme is revealing one of your unmet needs or a need that you might need a little bit more of. Another shortcut to figuring out your needs is to think about the way that you care for and love others. So this becomes an issue a lot of times in relationships because we tend to love others in the ways that we like to receive it. And, we're supposed to love people in the ways that they need. But, it's just it's unnatural for us. It's a little bit more work. So if you think about the way that you show up for other people, most likely this is what you also need in return. And then you can reflect on whether or not this is actually getting met for you.
Those are really good.
I'll give one more. One big picture one. This is a bigger picture one,
Okay,
but I think it's a takeaway on my first book, and I give a framework for it. But if you weren't to read my book, you can at least kind of like do the short version, which is that we have to, especially as women, but I think this works for everyone. We have to every single day, at least once, take 15 to 30 seconds and just do a check-in with ourselves, do a scan through our emotional state, our mental state, our physical state. Like, how are we doing? Because part of the reason women don't know what they need is because they're so disconnected from themselves. So as you start to repair that connection by regularly kind of checking in with you, hey, how am I doing today? What's going on? I'm feeling a little bit of this. What's happening there? We start to kind of build that relationship with ourselves back, and it can help us start to identify more regularly what we actually do need so that we can have a chance at getting it met.
I have this app called How We Feel, and it will say like
Ooh.
high energy or low energy is the first differentiator.
Mm-hmm.
Unpleasant, pleasant. So that puts you in one of 4 categories. And then
Yeah.
once you click it, like if I'm high energy, pleasant, there's lots of options.
Oh, that's so cool.
And it gives you a notification at the like in the morning and then in the evening. Are you ready to check in with your feelings?
That's
And
awesome.
I get mad at it sometimes. I'm like, shut up. And I just
Annoying.
ignore notification. But in theory, Morgan, in theory,
Yes.
that could be a great tool for moms who are
Yes.
not. I agree with you. I spent many years, especially with young kids that
Mm-hmm.
have constant needs, like real get me juice, change
Yeah.
my diaper, like needs just, I call it like pinball machine. I'm just popping between needs and very detached from what's going on in me. This has been helpful. Yeah. To attune to, because then
Yes.
anger comes out and you feel guilt for anger, or you feel like I need a break from all this, but I'm feeling guilty if I take time for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's just like exhaustion, and sometimes it's you're actually feeling sad about something else and it comes out as anger. And
Yeah.
so I love that you have that as a tip for figuring out your needs, is just kind of connect to yourself.
Yeah. Yep. And the more you do it, the better you'll get at it.
What advice would you give to the mom who is literally today like, I really know I need a little space from motherhood, but I feel so much guilt to take that space?
Yeah. I
Like I'm
used
doing
to
something
be that.
wrong.
I know. I used to be that mom. I have a whole chapter around guilt, or section of a chapter around guilt in my first book. And I think, guilt is the feeling that comes about when you think you have violated some standard you hold for yourself. And it's actually a very productive emotion. So I think the first thing is to understand that there are 2 types of guilt. There is deserved guilt, which is when you've actually violated a standard that's important to you. And now you feel guilty, and that prompts you into a behavioral change or a repair or something that actually is a good thing. So, like a morning where perhaps I've like kind of lost my cool with my kids, I'm going to feel guilt because that's not aligned with who I want to be and the mom I want to be. It prompts me to make it better. The other is undeserved, which is this what's going on in those circumstances, taking that time. And undeserved guilt comes about when we hold some extreme or impossible standards for ourselves, a lot of times around what it means to be a good mom. And so moms really have to kind of battle with some of that. You have to identify these impossible standards. The easiest way to get there is to use the prompt, a good mom should. And
Mm,
then you start just listing, a good mom should never need a break from her kids. A good mom should enjoy every moment with her children. A good mom should make, homemade Christmas cookies and da, da, da. It's like, it's endless, the things that we can put in there. And then you kind of got to look at those and say, is that realistic? I
yeah.
mean, is there some flexibility here around this impossible standard? Because a lot of times they're very rigid and they're keeping us locked into feeling this undeserved guilt. Everybody needs a break.
Mm,
Everybody needs a break. How are you supposed to parent 24/7 every
yeah.
single day and not need to come up for air? That's absolutely wild. If your friend called you and said she needed a break, would you be like, "Shame on you. I thought you were a good mom." No way.
Yeah.
So part of it is identifying, what's the belief that's keeping me locked into this, and how can I adjust it to be a little bit more realistic so I can show myself some grace, and then do the thing.
Mm,
Then do it. That's the other piece, is so we can change our thoughts, but if you change your behavior, it's going to reinforce the thoughts. And sometimes we got to change the behavior before our thoughts are totally there, and it will pull them along. So, okay, I feel kind of guilty, but I'm going to take this time. I'm going to make it a short amount of time. And then the next time I make it a little longer, I'm going to work up to it. But I'm going to
mhm.
get to a place where this does not become a whole ordeal of stirring up all this guilt the next time around.
And if it's a break that requires support from a partner,
Yeah.
so here we are connecting, got the load of
Yeah.
I feel guilty when I take a break. The need is I actually need a break. And then the confidence to express that need.
Yeah.
Any tips for expressing those needs? I know you gave some tips when it came to asking for appreciation. That was so fantastic. So, any tips on this? I know you've got lots in your book, but
Yeah, I think, the way that you approach a partner for like needing this time can make a difference. And it's on them to receive it. I think that's the tricky part in relationships is like you can't control the other side of things, but it could just be helpful to just be direct. I'm really struggling. I'm tired. And I realize I've gone a long time without asking for a break. And I thought that's how I could exist, but I can't. For the sake of our family and my mental state, I need a minute. So, when is a good time? I think that's the other thing is that we will ask and then we'll say, "Do you think that you can?" And I don't mean to like be so pushy or so aggressive but it's important to have a healthy sense of assertiveness. So, when is a good time for me to take a break? I was thinking this might be a good time. Does that work for you? Put it out there that it's happening, but you're being respectful of their schedule and their capacity too. So, just kind of walking that line between honoring them and what they've got going on, and also your need to get that time is really important. This is something I did forever. I know a lot of women do this, which is we outsource our care and our needs. So we will wait. Okay. We will want our partner to see that we're overwhelmed,
uh,
and we will want them to like volunteer to take the kids or do the things so we can get a break. So we're waiting to be rescued. And that would be amazing. And that does happen for some people. And I think that things can shift to where this happens in your relationship. And I know you probably do it for others too, which is the frustrating thing about it. But when you do that, you are outsourcing your care to somebody else. You're giving them the power. You won't get care unless they give it to you. And so I just want to like urge women, especially, to not outsource this any longer, to step into your personal power and get that time. If you need it, ask for it with obviously graciousness, but also assertiveness.
yes, empower the ladies. I mean, I think now that I have 4 boys and they're in relationships with girls, I'm kind of like, yeah, they just need to tell you what they want. Why are
Yeah.
they being so confusing? And then I'm like,
Yeah.
wait, oh,
Oops.
okay. It is kind of helpful to now that I'm coaching them. I'm like, well, if
Yeah.
she wants that, she just needs to tell you that's what she wants.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Isn't it
Mhm.
wild how they reflect things back to us at all stages of life? And we're like,
Mhm. Mhm.
I
I
needed
get
that
that.
lesson.
Yeah, I needed to hear that. Well, thank you for joining me so much, Morgan. And
Mhm.
we will for sure have you back on to talk about your next book, A Better Share, which y'all can pre-order now. Comes out
Yeah,
in April.
it
So
does.
why not? Grab a
Get
copy now.
it.
Or like put your name in the hat to get
Yeah.
one. I bet she'll choose your name. Um, any last words of advice as we head into the holidays, like that you've been kind of, ruminating. That's the word. Ruminating.
Ruminating on. Oof. I mean, I think, this is a season that you really want to enjoy. And I think that part of the frustration and resentment can come about because we're like, we're supposed to be enjoying this. And instead, we're mad that we're not getting whatever we need. We're not getting enough support, or we're not getting appreciated, or we're making the magic, but who's thinking about us, or our stocking's empty. And, I think that, as much as you can, step into being clear about what you need, being brave and courageous about asking for more participation from your partner. I mean, do it so that you enjoy the holiday season a little bit more.
Yeah.
You deserve to.
Yeah.
And, the more, if you're like, well, I got a pretty good, situation that's not coming up for me, I think the more that you can view these incredibly busy seasons of life as like the obstacle you and your partner are up against as a united team and a front, that is going to really shift how you think about this stuff and help the two of you work together.
Thank you so much for joining me
Thank
today.
you for having
You all
me.
definitely go to the show notes right now. Look at the Instagram link for Morgan because you are just going to be delighted. And she has so many online things, courses, helpful PDFs, lots of great support for you around this topic. So go check all that out. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
I don't know about you, but I found everything that Morgan said super interesting, and it's going to stick with me for a little bit. I think considering our mental load with the 3 cognitive, physical, and emotional, and I'm curious for you, which of those is heaviest? And I'm also curious if you gained any ideas on how to approach your spouse with your needs specifically. Maybe if you're listening to this before the holidays, a specific way they could help you. And then noticing where you're complaining. I thought that was really, really helpful to recognize that that's a need and to turn our complaints into requests. And so I hope that you will get time to process this. I know, again, it's like she said, I don't want to add to your to-do list, but hopefully we can recognize, name it, and then release some of that load. I'm going to pray over us. Lord, first of all, I thank you for another year of weekly conversations. And for those who listen, Lord, I pray that we have grown closer to you, that we have felt less alone, and that we have found your comfort and peace. I pray for, as we head into the new year, that we would continue to grow in our ability to surrender to you and our ability to reach out to others when we are hurting or, Lord, trying to hold too much. I do pray that we would recognize our actual needs and that we would ask for support of those things. And I pray for this holiday season that you would meet each and every person right where they are and provide them what they need. If it's joy, if it's comfort, if it's rest, that they would reach out to you and that you would be all that they need in that season. And Lord, I just dedicate this next year to you. Guide us, help us know what you have for us and how to walk with you into it. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, y'all. That's a wrap. I will see you back here on January 6th of 2025. That's such a fun year to say, by the way, 2025. I don't know. And I'm actually bringing on the show. She's such a wordsmith. Her name is Clear, which is like, that's what she does. She's clear on all the things. We're going to talk about declaring God's truth and renewing ourselves, reviving ourselves, like a personal revival in 2025. So join me for that in January. See you next year. Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Don't Mom Alone podcast. If you're wanting to connect with more people and more resources to help remind you that you're not alone, head over to don'tmomalone.com. That's where you'll also find show notes with any links mentioned by our guests. Most importantly, I want you to know the good news, the great news that you're not alone because God has promised to always be with you. With faith in Jesus Christ, the one who died for you and rose again, Jesus said when he left, he was going to leave a helper, a comforter, to be with us. God in us. Moms, that's superpower. So while you're washing dishes at your kitchen sink, while you're driving to and from work, while you're feeding that baby late into the night, while you're cleaning sticky floors, God promises to be just as present with you as when you're worshiping in a church pew. As it says in Zephaniah 3:17, the Lord your God is with you. He is mighty to save. He takes great delight in you. He will quiet you with his love, and he will rejoice over you with singing. Now that's good news. Have a great day.